Welcome into the On3 Studios here in Nashville, Tennessee. It's Sunday evening. Yes, a Sunday evening edition of the Inside Scoop. The dead period ended last Monday and visits are back. And this was the first big visit weekend of the spring, and there were some big visits. We're going to talk all about it in this video. We got Ohio State, LSU, Alabama today, but first, the Under Armour Camp Series stopped in Dallas. It just ended. Players literally walking off the field. Director of Recruiting Chad Simmons just stepped off the field as well, and we're going to go to him right now for some five-star scoop. I got Director of Recruiting for On3 Chad Simmons on this video. He is fresh off the field in Texas for the most recent Under Armour Camp Series stop. Remember, last week Chad was down in Miami. Today, right off the field in Dallas, Texas. So let's get right to it. The five-star intel. Bring on Chad Simmons. And Chad, we're going to start right here at the top. Wide receiver, DeCorian Moore from Duncanville, Texas. He was the On3 MVP of the camp. So I want to ask you, before we get into his recruitment, what stood out to you about him?
You know, for me, Josh, probably just how easy he makes things look. You know, he just glides across the field, creates separation, catches everything, whether it be a good ball, bad ball from the quarterback, just adjust to the ball in the air, catches the ball with his hands. Really just, I think, the minute he steps on the field, you know, his confidence, he knows he's the best player there, and he plays that way.
And he's part of that flock of LSU number one players at their position. Obviously, DeCorian Moore, the number one wide receiver in the country. Solid commitment to LSU. Is Texas and Ohio State, or do you still consider them contenders? Is DeCorian Moore still in touch with anybody?
Yeah, I would say, like you said, fresh off the field. I probably talked to DeCorian and then his mom less than an hour and a half ago. So literally fresh information, fresh dialogue there with the Moore camp. And yes, I would definitely say, you know, that there is competition and contenders there for LSU to go up against, and Texas and Ohio State, like you said, are two. And don't sleep on Oregon. You talked about Junior Adams, the receivers coach at Oregon. He's going to take an OV to Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, and LSU. That's the plan. He was at LSU this weekend. The next stop, Columbus for Ohio State on March 18th. So, look, LSU fans have to feel good. They have to be confident. Like you said, he's part of possibly a historic recruiting class for LSU with those guys at the top of the board. But there are other contenders out there.
All right. Now, you were in Miami last week, so, of course, we were talking all about the wide receivers and DBs at that camp. Now you're in Texas, so let's get into the big men. Offensive tackle. We're going to start with offensive tackle Ty Haywood. He's out of Denton, Texas. Now, Oklahoma started trending on the recruiting prediction last week, but is it going to be easy for the Sooners to pull him out of the state of Texas?
No, I don't think it'll be easy, Josh. I mean, like you said, I mean, going into the trenches now here in Texas, big man. I mean, everything's bigger in Texas, right? I mean, this guy is a dude. I mean, he is a big guy, nice guy off the field, well-spoken today, fun to catch up with. But then, man, when he goes between the lines, you know, he gets dirty, he dominates, he gets physical. And I think Oklahoma sits in a great spot. You know, like you said today, I think they are trending as the school to beat heading into the spring and then summer official visits. But there'll be some competition. You know, he mentioned schools like Texas A&M, obviously Texas TCU. Numerous schools are in play. He even brought up Alabama today. We'll get an official visit in the May 31st weekend. So there are some contenders, but I do think based on talking to him and other sources this weekend, there is some separation at the top between Oklahoma and the other schools.
All right. Well, we'll see. Right now, it seems to me Texas A&M probably a better shot at keeping him home than maybe Texas. Is that fair to say right now?
Yeah, there's no doubt the new staff, you know, there's coming hard. You know, after Haywood. And I think, you know, he's open to seeing the new environment, the new culture. I mean, you hear other O-linemen, you know, more attached to the University of Texas than you do, you know, Haywood, but he still has some communication there. But I do think A&M has the better shot talking in-state schools.
All right, let's move over to the other mammoth five-star offensive tackle that was at the camp, and that's Michael Fasusi out of Louisville, Texas. 6'4.5", 285. What teams, because you talked to him afterward, what teams does it sound like have kind of separated themselves in this recruitment?
Yeah, I think, I think it starts with the team we were just talking about a little bit with Haywood, but the University of Texas there in Austin, I think it starts with them. I think if you would have asked me this time a year ago, when I was out here at the Under Armour Next Camp in Dallas, I would have said Oklahoma was maybe the early team trending at that time. But fast forward now, 12 months, Texas plays in the playoffs, another year of relationships being built. I think Kyle Flood, Steve Sarkisian have done a great job making Fasusi feel like a top priority. He's connected with that staff. He likes what Texas is building and doing there as a program. And I like where Texas is at. I think the contenders, A&M is right there. He goes to Missouri this week. They're in play. He was there for the first time at Missouri in January, going right back this week. They're doing a great job. Brennan Jones, the O-line coach at Missouri, doing a great job there. And then I think you have still Oklahoma hanging around. But I think right now it's pretty safe to say Texas is setting the pace.
All right. Now let's move on and talk about linebacker Riley Pettijohn. He's been talked about a lot on the Inside Scoop. He's out of McKinney, Texas, and we know that he has 2 OVs set right now, one to USC, one to Texas. But who else is in this recruitment right now?
Yeah, I think Ohio State, Texas A&M, Florida State kind of round out the 5 that he's, looking at, discussing, talking to. And he mentioned he's probably going to take OVs to all 5 schools at some point this summer and then make a decision before his senior year. Now, he showed up, obviously, in the Texas backpack. Read into that, whatever you'd like to as fans watching this. But I think there's some – correlation there that Texas is in a great spot. I mean, he likes the University of Texas. They have a new linebackers coach he's connected with there in Austin. And I like where Texas sits, but he will take the process out. He will take some spring trips, summer OVs, then make that decision.
Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. Where are the relationships in that visit? Who do you think right now has the best relationships with Pettijohn?
I think he talked pretty much openly about everyone today. He mentioned like Laurinaitis at Ohio State. He mentioned the new staff at Texas. Obviously there were some coaching changes at the University of Texas. I think he's pretty much talking, openly to coaches at all 5 schools. I mean, even changes at, USC on the defensive side of the ball. So I think there's some new relationships being established there, but I think it goes back to that Texas staff, even the personnel grouping there behind the scenes. And then, of course, Steve Sarkisian being very hands-on and involved has kept that Texas relationship just building, and the new ones now taking shape and forming.
All right, the last prospect I want to talk about from the Dallas Under Armour stop is wide receiver Taz Williams. Now, he's out of Red Oak, Texas, but Chad, this looks to be shaping up to a classic Ohio State-Michigan battle. Who do you give the edge to right now?
I like where Michigan's at, for multiple reasons, Josh. I mean, he does live in Texas, but he's not from Texas. He's actually from Pennsylvania, moved down to the Lone Star State, still has family, up north in that area. So, him leaving Texas and going back north to the Midwest or anywhere he ends up, it's not like he's leaving everyone behind in the state of Texas. So he's open to really going wherever he feels the most wanted. And I think Michigan has done a great job making him feel that way, starting with Ron Bellamy. Obviously, he was retained by Sharon Moore, the new head coach at Michigan. Margin Hooks is his trainer, Talkin Williams is trainer. Those two played, him and Bellamy played in the NFL together. So there's a connection there. Relationships have been built. He's going back to Ann Arbor this spring. He'll take an OV there in the summer. And I like where Michigan sits right now with Taz Williams.
All right, a lot of intel in this update, Chad. And if you guys want more, we only hit on about 5 names that were at the Dallas Under Armour. Chad has an article up on on3.com right now with over a dozen updates from the camp. So you guys go check that out. I'll link it in the description of this video. Chad Simmons, Director of Recruiting for On3. Thank you for stopping by the Inside Scoop just off the field in Dallas. Appreciate you.
Anytime. Thanks, Josh.
Kalen DeBoer is coming back for what is his. Last week, remember Antonio Coleman? He was committed to Alabama under Saban, but then flipped to the rival Auburn Tigers. Well, then Kalen DeBoer takes the job, and it took him about a month or so, but DeBoer got Coleman back on the Tide commit list, and DeBoer might not be done. There could be another major flip in the works. In this video, I got the GOAT Tim Watts with us. He's going to break it all down. But first, Alabama fans, I need you to do me a favor. Hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel because we talk Bama recruiting all year round, so you need to jump on board. Hit subscribe. All right. Let's bring on Tim Watts from Bama Online. Now, before we talk about the big flip that could be in the works, let's talk about the much-anticipated visit of five-star quarterback Julian Lewis. Now, we know he's going to hit a spring tour, going to see a bunch of schools throughout the country, but this weekend he was in Tuscaloosa. What are you hearing from your sources about this visit?
Yeah, all the feedback's been good. Chad Simmons, our own national analyst, got a good interview with him and got some feedback. Andrew Bone, who works with us at BamaOnline.com, was texting with him. All the feedback was really good. And to be clear, this is a guy that's pretty comfortable at the University of Alabama. He's visited off and on, over the years. So there's not a lot to learn as far as the city, the campus, and all that kind of stuff. To what he's coming to see is DeBoer's offense, right? Nick Sheridan in the play column, because that's the one thing that was most interesting to him. And he got a lot of that. He got a lot of discussion with Kalen DeBoer, a lot of discussion with Sheridan sitting down, and he got to see, the proofs in the pudding, exactly what they're going to be doing. The interesting angle for him, I think, is the fact that his former teammate, Caleb Odom, is on the team. And not only on the team, he's a true freshman, but he's shining. I mean, you hear a lot of people, veterans on the team, bragging about how well he's done. We know that Caleb loves the offense. So they've got that working in their favor because he can give them, like, the inside view and everything else. But he was there for 2 days. Seemed to go really well. He got to see everybody in action and spend a lot of quality time with them, as a top quarterback will. So, yeah, I think it went exceptionally well.
Interesting. Now, earlier this week, before we get to the weekend, five-star wide receiver Caleb Cunningham out of the state of Mississippi was in Tuscaloosa on Wednesday. Now, there's been experts that have said Mississippi State is the team to beat for Cunningham, but he told you guys before he left that, quote, I don't want to leave. So did Bama do enough to shake things up in this recruitment?
I think they did enough to stay in the recruitment, right, to get there. And I think that was big for the whole Alabama staff because they worked all of February, which was pretty quiet as far as outside of offers, but it's pretty quiet as far as Alabama standards go when it comes to recruiting. But you could see they were laying the groundwork for what was going to come in March. And look, they put together, Courtney Morgan helped. Obviously, Kalen DeBoer and all these assistants are so active. Off the field personnel guys really get after it too. But they had over 100 guys come the first week. And I don't ever recall seeing that, when Nick Saban was running. Now, things have obviously changed with the official visits and all that, but having triple-figure visitors and big names, a lot of big names were on the Alabama campus. So, obviously, they did a really good job.
Yeah, it was a huge weekend. Bama Online, you guys did a great job of covering it. We're just going to touch on a few of the key names, but there is literally close to over 100 visitors if you take in 25, 26, and 27 class, and Bama Online has all the coverage. Now, let's get to this potential flip, and I'm talking about edge Javian Hilson out of the state of Florida. He was committed to Alabama. He flipped to FSU on January 16th. So in the aftermath of all the Nick Saban drama, he flips his commitment to FSU. But this weekend, he's back in Tuscaloosa and had something very interesting to say. Quote, after talking with Coach Robinson and how he told me he would use me, my recruitment is still open. This is coming from FSU commitment Javian Hilson. So is DeBoer about to flip him back the same way that he flipped Coleman back from Auburn?
I think that's the first step, again, getting him on campus. And Hilson's been he's been a different bird when it came to his recruitment. I think he committed on a random Friday night after a game, and we're all just minding our business, and he had committed. Wasn't even that big of a name, or we hadn't talked to him nearly as much as we would in the future. And then he didn't just decommit when Saban was gone. He flipped to FSU. So I do believe he's a guy that's you're going to be able to influence and sell him on what you're going to do with him. So I would agree his recruitment's still over, but a hard guy to pin down. But obviously a good first step, just get him back on campus, and they did a good job. Christian Robinson does a good job. Kids relate to him really well, I'm told. Kind of a younger coach, but one of those guys that comes off almost as a big brother or uncle type. Plus, he knows how to sell his program and his position.
Yeah, he almost sounded to me surprised that he enjoyed the Bama visit under DeBoer as much as he did. We'll see what happens. It seems like he might have made a little emotional decision flipping to FSU in the time that he did. Sounds like Alabama could get him back. Speaking of getting guys back, Edge Zion Grady was back on campus, and he was another elite edge that decommitted from Alabama after Nick Saban retired. What are the chances of Bama getting him back now that he's been to campus?
Yeah, again, I mean, you looking at they're all kind of in the same boat because they're getting to know a brand new staff. Now, I will say with Zion, there is a connection with Freddie Roach, although he's kind of that edge outside linebacker position. Mm-hmm. Could end up either at outside linebacker at Alabama or edge again. But Freddie Roach knew who Zion was. They had some kind of relationship, especially just from the in-state angle. So that helps them there. I think they've got a better chance. I mean, Zion liked Alabama when he committed there. He wasn't a kid that just committed to Alabama because of Nick Saban. And of course, you had some of those guys that just wanted to play for what they considered the GOAT. But he is an in-state guy, and they're going to make inroads there, I think, rather easily. Auburn and other schools are certainly going to fight for him. So, again, this is almost like going on a first or second date when you're meeting this coaching staff. How do you like them? And based on the reviews we've gotten from other players, other prospects, other parents, and people close to the parents, they do a really good job of being personable and understanding how to recruit.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it was a really big weekend in Tuscaloosa, and this is just the first weekend out of the dead period. So the dead period kind of gave Kalen DeBoer and his staff a chance to get together, kind of find their footing on the recruiting trail. But, Tim, it seems like the Alabama staff is hitting their stride early coming out of the gates.
Yeah, I think there's been some impatience because you didn't know exactly what was going to happen and when. Mm-hmm. Again, February was quiet, but, I mean, it's the dead period. We were explaining on the roundtable, it's the dead period for a reason, but they were setting up everything that you've seen. And if you look at his body of work so far, if you go back, Ryan Williams, he was able to secure that commitment. I don't know if there was a bigger one that he'll ever have. It's, certainly in his first year, Ryan Williams was huge to get back in the fold or keep in the fold. And then you flash forward, he got the other transfers. But how about Keon Saab? He was a guy that probably could have went to anywhere, hit the portal, a guy that's got a high upside, a highly recruited guy. So they got him. They flipped Coleman, and this week, they're reaching out and getting other players and leading for other players that are making up a lot of ground. So I would say he's definitely, showing his chops because a lot of people, what was the question? Can he recruit in the South? And to me, I think it's either can you recruit or not? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I don't think it's either you know how to recruit or you don't know how to recruit. I mean, that's what it really comes down to. And so far they're showing they certainly do. And Courtney Morgan plays a big part of that. The recurring staff that stayed over, keeping guy like Freddie Roach in the state, Robert Gillespie, who knows Florida so well, helped. But all these guys came with connections. We hear nothing but good things so far.
All right. Like I said, just the first weekend out of the dead period. Seems like Alabama, really successful weekend. You guys can go read more about it on BOL. Tim Watts from Bama Online, thanks for stopping by.
Appreciate it.
Ohio State has signed a top 5 class in every recruiting cycle since 2020. The 2024 class, remember that finished at number 3 overall, and currently in 2025, Ohio State is number 2 behind only LSU. But this week, several recruiting prediction machine picks went in favor of the Buckeyes, and in this video, we're going to take a look at some of these recent predictions and see what's going on in Columbus. But first, guys, do me a favor. Hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We love talking Ohio State recruiting all off season. We're going to do it. I'm telling you, it's going to be exciting. So hit subscribe. All right, let's bring on Matt Parker from Letterman Row. Before we get to your picks, Matt, Chad Simmons, Director of Recruiting for On3, put in a pick for top 100 linebacker Justin Hill. Now, you guys at the site, you guys already put your picks in early. But when could this one be coming off the board? Could Justin Hill be committing soon?
I wouldn't expect a decision anytime soon, Josh. Talking with Justin for, about a year now and change, he's really wanting to go through this process to the entirety of he sees it playing out, which includes some spring visits. Like he's going to be at Ohio State March 19th. I would assume he'll be at Oregon and a couple of other places that he's really interested in, Alabama as well. And then expect official visits in June. And I do believe he is looking at an early July decision. So even though Ohio State is sitting in a pretty good position right now, this is going to go until about July or so.
All right. Now, these recruitments, they always say that they're going to go long. They're going to go to the distance, and then we see them shorten it up. But right now, Justin Hill, Going to go the distance. Yeah, we'll see. All right, new Ohio State predictions, and we'll start at the top here with wide receiver Jaime Ffrench. You really got this thing going. You got the recruiting world buzzing with a recruiting prediction machine pick on 5-star wide receiver Jaime Ffrench to Ohio State. Obviously, you're playing the long game here, but what gives you the confidence to put in a pick at 60% for Ffrench to Ohio State?
Well, it's 2 words and it's one name, Brian Hartline. You just see what he has done. I feel like we're just a broken record here, kind of repeating ourselves a little bit.
Yeah.
But ever since Jaime Ffrench decommitted from Alabama, there's 2 schools that you heard of, that you've been hearing of, and it's Ohio State and it's Florida State. And we heard about that last year in the 2024 cycle with Jeremiah Smith, who now is 2 practices in as an Ohio State Buckeye.
Yep.
Jaime Ffrench plays for South Florida Express, which Ohio State is very familiar with. And I just see the production capabilities that Ohio State does, what they have done in terms of development, what they are doing on the recruiting trail now. And it's hard for me to bet against Brian Hartline when there's a 5-star wide receiver from Florida that he really, really wants. So I'm playing the long game, like you said, Josh.
That's one that kind of sets the tone. I know your message boards. How many times do you think your message board is going to ask you throughout this recruitment how confident you are in that pick of Ffrench to Ohio State?
Truly, I think the Letterman Row message board wants to see a little bit more information about offensive tackles than it does 5-star wide receivers. But that's kind of just the expectation, is that 5-star wide receivers are going to head to Columbus no matter where they're at.
Yeah, especially from the state of Florida. I agree. I think it's Ohio State for Jaime Ffrench until it ain't, until Brian Hartline misses on one of these elite guys. You got to keep predicting them to Ohio State. Another position in need is the edge position, and you put in a pick for Marion Dye from Elkhart, Indiana. He goes 6'6", 235, an absolute monster of a pass rusher. You like Ohio State here over UGA, Miami, and Tennessee?
This is a little bit of another long-term kind of play for me here. I was looking at, Chad Simmons reported about this a couple of weeks ago, and it's an unofficial top 4 right now of Ohio State, Georgia, Tennessee, and I believe it's Oklahoma. Or there's a school I'm missing out there. But the most important thing in that unofficial top 4 is that Ohio State is the only school that is north of the Mason-Dixon line that is in that school in that top school list for a Midwest prospect. And when that's the case, I feel pretty confident about Ohio State being able to cross state lines, go to Indiana, and get an edge rusher that they, A, really want, and B, really need. Ohio State is going to need to have a big defensive line class, particularly on the edge, with guys like, JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer heading to this is their last season at Ohio State. There's not a lot of depth behind them either after a couple misses in 2023 and 2024. So Ohio State's going to have to load up, and it's going to have to be with talented guys like Marion Dye. So another long-term play here with that pick, but I do expect Ohio State to get that one done as we sit here right now on March 10th.
All right, now let's move down the list to running back Marquise Davis. He's at Cleveland Heights, and he has a great combination of size and speed. He goes 5'11", 200 pounds, so a bit of a bruiser. You guys at the site have been telling us to keep an eye on this one. Now that the picks are in, what's the decision timeline look like for Marquise Davis?
So I was recently up in Cleveland Heights visiting Marquise Davis, and I spoke last time I spoke with him in October about this very topic. He gave me 3 different answers in the same question, right? Now he's looking to have this decision made and be done before his senior season begins in August.
Okay.
I would expect maybe a mid-July, even a late July decision for Marquise Davis. Ohio State is certainly one of the top schools in his recruitment right now. So is USC, Michigan, Tennessee, Kentucky. There's a number of schools that are really high on Marquise Davis, and he's high on them as well. I would expect a spring visit for Davis to Ohio State, make the short 2-hour drive from Cleveland to Columbus, and just continue to grow that relationship. Ohio State is going to need at least 2 running backs in this 2025 cycle. And I like Marquise Davis right now to Ohio State.
All right, let's switch back to the defensive line. London Merritt, 4-star from Atlanta, playing at IMG Academy. He's 6'2", 235. Put a pick in for him to Ohio State. Seems to like Alabama as well. Do you see Bama as the biggest competition here?
If you told me that Nick Saban was going to be the head coach at Alabama for 2024, I would absolutely say yes. And would absolutely say yes. Now I'm still saying yes, but there is a large separation between the two. Just talking with some sources with Ohio State and things like that. Ohio State feels in a pretty good position right now for London Merritt. He's already set his official visit to Ohio State for the second weekend in June, second or third weekend of June. And he's going to be on campus March 30th, which is a pretty big visitor day for Ohio State. Jaime Ffrench is going to be there. A pretty big five-star kind of weekend for Ohio State at the end of this month. Again, we go back to Ohio State needing to fill up its defensive line board for 2025, Josh. London Merritt sees a real opportunity there. And this is a recruitment to pay attention to because Ryan Day has really, really inserted himself in this recruitment. And when the head boss inserts himself really, really, big inside of a recruitment, it's really time to start paying attention.
Yeah, making him a big-time priority. So all this talk about recruiting prediction machine picks, but who could be the next to commit? Are we looking at somebody from this list the next to commit, or is it TJ Alford, the four-star linebacker out of Florida, who is set to decide at the end of March?
I would say TJ Alford is the guy that we really have to watch. He has a commitment date set for March 30th. He has an unofficial visit to Ohio State March 23rd. I've put in a pick on the Buckeyes to land him. My colleague Alex Gleitman has put in a pick. Corey Bender of Gators Online has made a pick for Ohio State. So you're starting to see the trajectory and all the picks are starting to roll in. And that decision date, that announcement date is going to be here before we know it, Josh. But I think TJ Alford is the one that we have to watch. As much fun as it would be someone on that list, I think it's TJ Alford.
Hey, we have the whole cycle for these guys to commit. Doesn't mean they need to come off the board right now. I like some of these long-term projections, some of these picks that you put in. It really shook up the recruiting world. Matt Parker from Letterman Row, appreciate you taking some time to talk Ohio State recruiting today on the Inside Scoop.
Appreciate the time, Josh.
We said LSU was going to have a big visit weekend. We didn't know it would be this big. The Tigers, they had an incredible collection of talent on campus this weekend. And in this video, I got Shea Dixon with the Bengal Tiger to break it all down. Several key five-stars were on campus, along with number 1 overall recruit Bryce Underwood. But there's also some surprises on campus this weekend. Now, before we get into it, you guys do me a favor and hit subscribe. All right, let's get into it. All right, Shea Dixon for the Bengal Tiger. Now, Shea, we got to start with the big news coming out of Baton Rouge on Saturday night, and that is the fact that LSU goes into the state of Texas and lands 4-star linebacker Charles Ross. Now, take us behind the scenes of this one. How did LSU do it?
Yeah, this is all Blake Baker, at least a big part of it. LSU's new defensive coordinator coming over from Missouri, also the team's linebackers coach. He's from Houston, so he got right into North Shore, where Charles Ross goes to high school, back in February and offered him a scholarship, became the first SEC team to offer Charles Ross a scholarship. In the most recent On3 Top 300, he cracked into that as a 4-star prospect. So we're talking about one of the better linebacker prospects nationally right now. And when you look at it, speed-wise, he's already clocked a sub-10 500 meters this spring. Has a 4.5 40-yard dash. So this is a guy who can move at linebacker, add Keelan Moses to that as a commitment. It's a nice start for Blake Baker to have 2 linebacker commitments and a number of other big targets on campus at the position.
Yeah, hey, position need, and they're getting it knocked out. And you're right, there were some other big names on campus, and here's a look at just a few of them. Bryce Underwood, who's committed to Corian Moore, number 1 wide receiver in America. He's committed. 5-star running back Harlan Barrett, he's committed. And then we creep down to 5-star wide receiver Caleb Cunningham, and he's the first big name that I want to talk to you about because there's some experts that think Mississippi State is the team to beat. Now, Cunningham is from the state of Mississippi, but this weekend he was in Baton Rouge. What are you hearing on his recruitment to LSU now?
Yeah, he's been to LSU a number of times now, Josh, and I think that everybody knows who follows recruiting closely that it's tough to pull top kids out of Mississippi when the in-state schools want them. And Ole Miss, Mississippi State are certainly going to jockey back and forth here. But LSU is one of those out-of-state teams that has his attention. And with the commitment from Corian Moore, the number 1 wide receiver in the country, with the commitment from Bryce Underwood, the number 1 quarterback in the country, it's not a surprise that they're tracking kind of the who's who of talent at wide receiver. So he wasn't the only big receiver on campus. Jaime Ffrench, one-time Bama commit, was on campus as well. They're in the mix with some others. So I think they're taking, much like with Cunningham, swing for the fences with these guys and see if you can't knock down a domino or two along the way.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about Jaime Ffrench here in a minute, but I want to talk about the number one linebacker in America, Jonah Williams. He was on campus, and last week he began trending on the recruiting prediction machine to Oklahoma. I know at one point Oregon thought that they had a good shot at him, but this weekend he was another one that was in Baton Rouge, another big name. Do you think that LSU now has a foot in the door with this visit?
A visit at least gets you a foot in the door, right, Josh? Yes,
Yeah.
and it's clear that he's at least going to take some visits, look around. The same goes for a guy like Pettijohn Wallace, who had some picks going for Florida State on three's number 2 linebacker in the country. He was on campus. So, yes, Oklahoma has been the team trending here. I think for LSU, it's just been about, hey, get these guys in, let them watch a spring practice, let them sit in on position meetings, and then let them get around some other recruits. We've mentioned kind of a who's who of committed names that were there this weekend. Remember, LSU has the number 1 recruiting class in America. So, yes, they are catching the attention of a lot of guys like him who are ranked number 1 at their position on the On3 industry rankings.
So let's talk about another number 1 at his position, and that's DJ Pickett, the number 1 corner in America. In this recruitment, this one, LSU has a little bit more than a foot in the door. At this point, are we ready to say that LSU is the team to beat, at least unofficially, off the record? Well, on the record, but off the record. Is LSU the team to beat for DJ Pickett?
On the record, off the record, if we're going by actions across the past couple of months, yes. I mean, as soon as Corey Raymond got hired by LSU, he quickly said, hey, look, LSU's a team I want to check out. Right before the dead period at the end of January, he goes to LSU. Right when the dead period ends in March, he's back at LSU and hanging out with all these guys like Underwood and DeCory and more, these other 5-star number 1 players at their position. So, yes, the Corey Raymond connection opened the door in a big way. I think LSU's capitalizing. Josh, they need corners badly. That's one thing that they really want to restock with this hire of Corey Raymond is bringing in those 5-star corner types every cycle, at least one of them. And I think this cycle, DJ Pickett's that guy they have circled. So, look, he's going to take visits. He's not going to pop tomorrow or anything like that. Yeah. But I do think that if you were to poll the teams that are really in the mix here, I think all of them would say LSU's the team that's made the biggest splash, into the 2024 calendar year.
Yeah, and I say unofficially because DJ Pickett would never come out and say that LSU is the team to beat. At least he wouldn't come out and say that right now. But I think you're right. I think all signs, kind of visits, everything that he's done to this point, knowing that Corey Raymond recruited him during his time at Florida. Zephyr Hills is only about an hour from the Gainesville. So, yeah, all signs right now point to LSU, but there's still a lot left in this one. And the Bengal Tiger, you guys got a lot of great updates. I found this cool stat on the website just to kind of put LSU's big visit weekend in perspective. There were 14 top 100 recruits. There was 23 top 150 recruits on campus. There was 33 top 300 recruits on campus. Almost the entire recruiting world was in Baton Rouge over the weekend, and this included the number 1 overall player, Bryce Underwood. Who exactly did he spend the most time around helping the LSU staff recruit?
Yeah, here's another one for you. The On3 industry rankings only have 25 stars right now. 6 of them were on LSU's campus. So that's 30% of the 5 stars that are out there were in Baton Rouge this weekend. I think you would point to probably a Friday, Saturday stretch here, Josh, for Underwood that included hanging out with guys like DJ Pickett, Caleb Cunningham, and Jaime Ffrench, who are all highly touted, highly regarded players who are being courted by the who's who of teams around the country. So I think that dinner with those guys puts LSU in a spot where they are pitching that number 1 class and they are able to see, hey, look, this is what we've got going. Then the next day, a breakfast with Underwood and DeCory and Moore, who Moore arrived on Saturday. He is committed to LSU as well as the number 1 wide receiver in the country. But he's starting to set up a couple of visits, at least planning them. We know Texas isn't going to give up there. So the more that I think you get those guys around each other, the better chance you have to hold on to them. And the more that you get Underwood and guys like that around the uncommitted guys like a Caleb Cunningham or a Ffrench or a Pickett, I think that just drives home the type of talent that's in this class right now and kind of opens the door for more to join them.
Absolutely. It was huge to see Bryce Underwood in photos with Jaime Ffrench and some of these guys. You can just tell that some of these recruitments are really just getting started for LSU. Now, Underwood wasn't on an official visit. It was unofficial. So, the official visits are much more in-depth. But in terms of what he did on campus, was he able to spend time with quarterback coach Joe Sloan? What are some of the things that he did while he was on campus?
Yeah, look, they go through all sorts of position meetings, breakdowns in the quarterback room. And I think one big thing here in this recruitment was really right around the same time after Underwood committed. Soon thereafter, Joe Sloan got named the OC from being quarterback's coach after Mike Denbrock took the same job at Notre Dame. So there not being any turnover at the OC spot, I think was really big for LSU. He's got a great relationship with Joe Sloan. But yes, was able to, between Thursday and Saturday, fit in kind of a mix of, hey, let's do film study coach meeting type stuff, and then let's just hang out. You get more familiar with the staff. You get more familiar with the commits and the top targets. So it was a little bit of a blend of it all. And here's the good news. He comes back for the spring game in about a month. So they'll continue to get Underwood on campus for big events like this.
All right. What do you think of Underwood's ability to recruit Jaime Ffrench? We kind of hit on him earlier in this video. He's the 5-star wide receiver out of Jacksonville, Florida. And this past week, he started trending towards Ohio State on the recruiting prediction machine. But we all know that this recruitment is far from over. He has said that he plans to take this into the fall. So my question to you, Shay, is, has LSU made an impact on Ohio State's perceived lead for Jaime Ffrench? Do you think that the Tigers are going to be one of these teams that we talk about when we talk Jaime Ffrench throughout the next, 6 to 7 months?
I do. I think that coming out of this weekend, this is a sort of lasting impact on guys that you hope to make. And I think Ffrench is one of those guys, from talking with sources, that they've circled, that they've really upped their stock with. And I'm not going to sit here and say who he's picking and if they've jumped Ohio State or if even Ohio State's up front. But yes, we did see them on through RPM Day laying some picks for the former Bama commit. But as you said, Ffrench wants to take visits. He wants to let things play out. He wants to sort of navigate his recruitment through the spring and summer. I think LSU getting an early visit really helped get their foot into the door and now really be firmly in the mix going forward. And look, they've got the number one receiver in the country committed in DeCorian Moore. They've got the number one receiver in Louisiana committed in Teron Francis. If you're thinking of taking 4 or maybe 5 receivers, you've got guys like Cunningham and Ffrench now on campus early on. Look at a couple of their other targets who are ranked in the top 5 and 10 nationally, and guys like Cortez Mills in Florida, a guy like Khalik Lockhart in Texas. So I think that LSU is in a really good spot here, Josh, moving forward with the 2 guys they've got on board and now these receivers that they're starting to bring in. If they hold on to them, there's a good chance that LSU's up there with the rest. I'm not sure who, Ohio State, you name it, with the best receiver class in the country. That's at least where they're trending right now.
And some of these names you're dropping, I mean, it just reminds me, it's an incredible year for wide receivers in this 2025 class. So LSU already has a strong foundation, and there's more to come. There's a lot of talented wide receivers out there. We teased it at the top. There was a surprise. Auburn defensive line commitment, Jordan Crawford, wasn't on your expected visitor list, but he showed up in Baton Rouge. So what does this visit mean? And are we looking at now a potential flip? Inside Scoop fans, listen up. College football, the season's wrapped. That means it's time to get out and enjoy other things. I know it's all about college football, but there are other events to attend. I'm here in Nashville. Last week, I decided to go to a hockey game. But guess what? The tickets were sold out. That can be a problem for some people. Finding tickets before a game can be an absolute nightmare, but do not let this be the way your 2024 goes. That's why I'm here to tell you all about Game Time. It's a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the big-time matchups. Game Time app is great, easy to use, and it works in any city, any team, and you get the best price guarantee. So don't stress over getting into your favorite team's games anymore. There's only so many big games each year, and you need to get these tickets at the best prices. In Game Time, that's where it is the place to be for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Game Time is obsessed with finding ways to help you save money, like zone deals. This is where you pick a section and Game Time picks the seats for big savings. So here's what we're going to do. Snag the tickets without stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code INSIDESCOOP for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code INSIDESCOOP for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Yeah, I guess they kept that one a little bit quiet on us, Josh. That happens
They
when you're
slipped one
dealing
by you.
With SEC versus SEC competition here. No, so they get a guy like Jordan Crawford in. He's been committed to Auburn, I believe, since October, but he's started to look around. Obviously, he's been taking phone calls from LSU. Bo Davis, when he got hired, went out and saw him, and that was testing the waters, right? In January, when you go to the school, you get a feel for things. Getting him to come to campus, I think, was a big thing. So as Bo Davis feels out his D-line board, I think guys like Jordan Crawford are absolutely in the mix because, yes, they're committed to Auburn, but as far as a new hire like Bo Davis sees it, that happened before he got to LSU. So he's going after guys, whether they're committed to schools right now or not. And I think a lot of it is guys who are left over from who he was recruiting at Texas. And guys like Jordan Crawford can kind of certainly fit into that mix of guys he could see now recruiting at LSU and that have offers that could be committed upon. So he isn't the only one. I think there's a number of SEC schools, D linemen, that LSU are kind of keeping an eye on, trying to get in on visits and kind of putting the pressure on a little bit right now.
All right. Well, Jordan Crawford is now officially on the radar for LSU fans. We can't end this video when we talk big visit weekend if we don't talk offensive line. So last week you and I on this show talked a lot about Micah DeBoer's, the big time interior offensive lineman, and also Tyler Miller. So did they make it in, and what's the latest intel here on these two?
Yeah, so DeBoer's did not make it in. He's going to visit either later in the month or probably early April. If he makes it for the spring game, that would probably be the latest I would expect him in. So that visit will come the next month. Word out there is that he wants to take some visits before he shuts things down. He told that to On3's Chad Simmons most recently, I think just a week ago, said, look, when I'm ready to commit, I'll be ready, but I do want to check out some schools. So I think he sticks to that. Still feels good about LSU, though, as the team to beat. Okay. That being said, Tyler Miller popping up, the number one interior offensive lineman on 3, was big news coming out of Laurel, Mississippi. Again, a lot like Caleb Cunningham. When you're in Mississippi and State's after you and Ole Miss is after you, it's tough to pull those guys. But Louisiana is a border state. They've had some success landing some Mississippi kids, and this is a South Mississippi kid that they feel like, hey, this is worth putting our effort and energy into. He's that good. So I think LSU feels about like we do about Tyler Miller. He is the top-ranked interior offensive lineman out there, and the buzz coming out of the weekend is that they continue to kind of up their stock a little bit in terms of where they stand in the race for his commitment.
All right. Well, like I said, we knew this was going to be a big visit weekend in Baton Rouge, but we didn't know it would be this big. Bengal Tiger has all the details. We only covered a fraction of what you guys wrote about on the website all weekend. Go check that out. Shea Dixon, thanks for dropping by today on the Inside Scoop.
Yes, thanks for having me on, Josh.
Thank you for watching this video, and if you enjoyed that, go check out the hundreds of videos that we have on this channel, and also do me a favor, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel.